welcome everybody. My name is Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back with the messages for the last week of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. Yay! The new year is almost here. I don't think there's many of us that wish 2025 could go on any longer. And thankfully it's not. 9 years are tough. So congratulations for making it all the way through. So hopefully you've been following me all year. You've been prepared for all the bumps and the lumps and the changes in direction. If not, you might want to consider clicking on that subscribe button now. That way you are following me into 2026. And speaking of 2026, I did a pretty in-depth article. In fact, it took me a long time to put it in the format and the outline of everything that I wanted to cover without being too overwhelming. There'll be the link to that below here so that you can go out and take a look at what are some of the bigger trends, what are some of the bigger meetups and events as far as the energy and the planets go. Last year, everybody was changing signs, and then they were backtracking, and then now they're ready to move forward. But some are still doing some wrap-up work, like Uranus still being retrograde. So that'll move forward next year. And of course, there's the big meetup with Saturn and Neptune. So all of that is covered, at least high level. And there's a breakdown for what to expect from the big reset between Saturn and Neptune. So make sure you go out and read that. Take your time. Like I said, there's a lot of information to absorb. You might want to read it a couple of times. And I'll likely do a video next year to cover some of those events in a little bit more detail, like the nodes changing signs at the same time as Jupiter's changing signs. There's a lot going on next year. So thank you for tuning in and listening, following, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing my work. It lifts me up that I can help people going into 2026. So I count you among those. So thank you again for tuning in today. So if you happen to be new to my channel, I break it down day by day, covering the most significant events of the day, the most significant connections. And this week, we will, of course, transition into a new year. We're also going to see our first full moon lunar event, and I'm going to break that out separately. So I'm going to cover it as far as the transactional energy goes, but then I'll do a separate video about the breakdown for every sign and what to expect, what to work on, what you need to conclude, so that 2026 is the year for you where you have all new opportunities coming in. So we want to be ready and prepared to talk about that. And so as usual, I kick us off here on Monday, December the 29th, and we take a look at what has been going on. How have we been transitioning out of the maybe erratic, crazy new moon in Sagittarius, because this week it will be activated again for the final time by Mercury. So whatever storylines are still going on, Mercury comes in with all of the details and all the information. So we'll be covering that later this week. But today, I'm still focused in on this energy, of course, with Jupiter and Chiron, but you'll notice that we're finally getting a little bit of a break from the direct square between these two. So Jupiter, which expands on whatever it touches, which has been a very emotional year with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And then Chiron highlights the wounds that we experience. And squares mean there's something difficult about our pain and self-confidence and our emotions and having our feelings hurt, which has given us some kind of lack of confidence. Maybe it's a lack of family support. And then that, again, makes you not do the things that you're intended to do. So there's still much more to uncover in this story, and we'll see it carry forward in 2026 as these two planets stay square to one another but switch signs. So that's going to be something intriguing to watch for next year as well. And then speaking of movement and action and the nodes, well, today we're seeing Mars in Capricorn, which I know people say Mars is exalted in Capricorn. However, I still feel like Mars feels restricted in Capricorn. Yes, it slows down. It has a purpose. It's got structure. But that's not Mars's energy. So I've always intrigued by that concept. I know it's not for me to say it isn't true, but how has it been for you? It takes Mars about 6 weeks to move through each sign. So we've had some time with it here in the sign of Capricorn, and there can be something about the work that you're meant to do, action that you're meant to take, structures that you're meant to create that is coming up today. Now, this could also be pretty interesting if we see maybe some significant movement in those areas that have instability, where there are bridges and barriers to water, and maybe something about that gets resolved today as far as the collective energy goes. Of course, Mars in Capricorn is also governments at war. So there could be a fated turn of events as far as conflicts go. So this could be a very interesting beginning to the week. And because Mars moves pretty slowly, we're going to see this for the next couple of days. And again, Mars is movement, Mars is war, Mars is attack, Mars is passion, Mars is anger. But the nodes are fate. Nodes bring us growth opportunities based on learning our lessons from the past. Being willing to let up and let go of maybe some land, maybe some control that you think you have to have. So it's definitely a big couple of days as we wrap up the end of the year. And you're also going to notice we have lots of heavy Capricorn energy. So there's this heaviness that follows the holiday season as we kick off on Monday. And it's almost like we need a reset from all the rushing around. Then we get to Christmas and then it's over. Well, and now's your time to just relax and give yourself permission to do just that. Now, as we move forward here to Tuesday, that Mars energy, like I said, still talking with the nodes. So that is going to continue, like I said, for these first couple of days. And then we see Mercury here getting closer to what that new moon event was about. But before it gets there, it's squaring off with Saturn, which is moving ahead a little bit more, thankfully, marching forward, finishing the work, again, making sure that you're sticking to the healthy boundaries that you've created for yourself. And then the other thing that we're seeing is now we have Neptune at 2929. So of course it's still walking with Saturn as they move forward. 29 is a very intense degree. It is energy that can be very emotional, very delusional. And so again, Mercury's information. Mercury's squaring these two planets. And as Mercury does that, information, what we think we know, is changing. Truths are being exposed. The truth is coming out because, of course, Sagittarius is about the truth. It's about hope and faith and justice and truth, and about, again, moving forward. That arrow doesn't move backwards when you set it off. It moves forward, and it moves forward swiftly. So there's something that we're learning. There's some conflicts of the mind that aren't sitting well. There can be arguments. Arguments may be escalating, but it's so that this change can come in as we navigate Tuesday. And then we move on to Wednesday, and it's New Year's Eve. So this is it. Open that front door and let the new year in. Open that back door and kick the old year out. And just make sure you're saging, cleansing, all the things. Make sure you're leaving in 2025 anything that you don't want to carry with you into 2026. Wasn't it just like 2012 a few days ago? I mean, geez, time is sure flying by. And as it does so, there is, again, more weird, unusual information. It could be unusual information about something financial. This could be more information about the conflict. There could be unexpected agreements of some kind. But it's not easy, whatever you're coming to, because, as I mentioned, this is activating whatever the new moon in Sagittarius showed you was possible for your new beginning, but it wasn't easy to move to this new location or this new job or this new opportunity or even just a new mindset. Because there was a lot of conflict going on, and Mercury revives it today as I mentioned, squaring Neptune, our delusions, our dreams, squaring with Saturn, the restrictor, the boss that wants it his way. And Mercury's young and doesn't necessarily want to fall in line with what these older, wiser people want for him. And so he's fighting for what he wants. And he wants something very big. And then that in conjunct to Uranus is what made the new moon a little crazy, a little wacky, a little wackadoodle as far as people were going and doing and their actions. And of course, everybody's impacted differently. But those of you who had a specific impact during that new moon event, there's something more. There's more detail. There's more explanation that is needed, and it's coming. It's not necessarily easy to hear, but it is necessary. So that's how we're wrapping up the year. And at the same time, as Mars is beginning to move on from the nodes, the sun is just beginning its connection. And so that means what you desire, how you want to shine in the world. Fate is stepping in to help you. It is showing you the path forward and showing you how, if you leave in the past what no longer serves you, what the big possibilities are, right? The sun is a big flashlight on your fate and your destiny, on your karmic past, but it's positive, right? These are blue lines, sextile to the north node, trine to the south node. So these are opportunities to move on, to let go, to move away from something that's just not healthy for you, even if it's just your mindset. And remember, Mercury rules Virgo as well as Libra. And while it is in that Virgo energy, it's all the facts, all the details, all your OCD-ness, all your need for control, right? There's something coming up that almost forces you to move on, to move forward. And it all started with that new moon on the 19th. So, again, the rest of the story is unfolding for us today. And that's a wrap on 2025. So, Happy New Year! Woo! Video though. So here we go. It's a brand new year. It's a 1 year. And how this year begins has a lot to do with the themes for the entire year. And as I was just wrapping up 2025, the 9-year, the endings, the closure, now here's that sun speaking still in harmony with the north and the south node. And so that says, right, these new beginnings that are coming in for you, they're fated. Yes, you have free will. Yes, you can drag your feet. But the sooner you get in line, the sooner you get on board with whatever the changes are that are coming up for you, the more success you'll have in the year ahead. So, of course, the sun's in the sign of Capricorn. It is every year on New Year's. It just has different connections and conversations at the time, but Venus is here very close. Keep in mind, Venus is invisible right now because the energy is so close to the sun. She's not able to be seen in the sky. And so that means topics related to, let's say, women in government. Things are going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, but she's also speaking in harmony with the North and South Node. So there can be women in government in 2026 that are making a big splash, are in the spotlight. And if it's not government, this can be some kind of large organization that has a very specific structure to it. Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, likes there to be likes there to be structure, rules, conditions in order for you to achieve your goals. This is goals that we achieve through hard work. Venus is women, it's beauty, it's love, it's money. Capricorn is money as well. So there is work ahead as far as our finances go, but trust how you're being guided, know that fate's in charge, and follow the directions that you're being given if you want to succeed in big ways this year. And remember, Mars just got done showing you what action you need to take also in order to succeed. And doors may have opened for you unexpectedly because, as I mentioned, this is fate. Now, also, as we start the new year, we have Mercury now at 29 degrees, that intense test in the sign of Sagittarius, and then it too will drop into the sign of Capricorn. So as we start this new year, we've got Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, all in the sign of Capricorn. We even have Juno, asteroid of marriage and commitment. So there is some very serious energy helping us get serious about our goals, Capricorn. This is 10th house. This is career success for 2026. Because it's a 1 year, those resolutions that you decide to do this year, make them very small and very specific and just baby steps. Because you need a path forward that is manageable and is very slow, detailed, and precise. So you might want to consider booking a session with me as we outline 2026. Look at all the new moons, all the full moons, of course, those eclipses that start in February already. We get the shift to Aquarius and Leo in the North and South Node. We've got a lot of shifts to navigate. And I just want you to succeed in knowing when to do things, when to make changes and shifts. That's half the work, is just timing. It's not that you're not succeeding. It's a lot of times is that you're not doing things when you should be doing them. And with that last burst of energy from Mercury and that square to Neptune, the illusions that you carried through 2025, you're not going to carry them with you anymore. They're coming to a complete end, and your mind might just be blown on Thursday. Also, just be careful because this can be a very difficult mental health day for people. So if you see someone struggling, this is the time for you to step up and not turn a blind eye and help them get to the resources that they need. And just be careful when you're out and about, and especially when you're traveling near and over and around water. That's how we start this new year. It's fated. There's new structures. There could be new restrictions. Hopefully they're good ones. And then we have a lot of more things to see. So again, go at least read my 2026 article to give you an idea. And in that article, I give you a little mini worksheet that says, hey, here's what house is being activated for you as a result of where all of these planets are starting out the new year. All right. So happy new year. Wishing you the very best in this year ahead. And let's take a look at Friday, January 2nd. So as we move into Friday, as I mentioned already, Mercury's here, Venus and the Sun are together. We're getting closer to our Venus Cazimi moment. And now we have this energy with the moon speaking in harmony with the nodes today. So as it moves farther into the sign of Cancer, which of course is its home sign, it too has a conversation with the nodes. And that, of course, is what's going to carry us forward and into our first full moon in the sign of Cancer that is happening on Saturday. So again, as this energy leads us towards the full moon, to what we need to complete, where we need to have closure, where we need to make sure we've got, like I said, the structures and the plan in place for us to succeed. Well, we have to make sure things are right at home before we can have them be right at work, right? That's what this axis of Cancer and Capricorn is about. Home and family, work. Emotional security, financial security, right? How are the two connected? So as we've moved through this week and as the nodes keep being activated, it's really important that, like I said, you slow down, you tune in, you listen to your intuition, because it's showing you places where you need to make changes. And when you listen, when you show up, that's when these big new opportunities are going to show up for you as well. So let's just navigate straight ahead to look at this full moon. And let me move the moon back so that we can see it being exactly across the sky from the Sun, from Venus, from Mars. That's a lot of energy. So our little emotional self, our little emotional security blanket is under a lot of pressure at the time of the full moon in Cancer, which of course is a big emotional event already. The moon is very strong here. Venus at least is a benefic planet. The Sun, of course, is always giving us tension. Our emotional self and our ego self have to figure out how to meet in the middle, how to balance this energy, which creates conflict. But the Sun, our ego self, is needed in order to have the full moon event, to shine a light on what our emotional security needs are, which is what the moon shows us. And of course, when a moon's full, the goals we set for ourselves 6 months ago at that new moon in Cancer, now there's a part of that that's ready to be completed. And so when we think about Cancer topics, of course, we think about home, family, motherhood. Some of you may be having children around this time. Of course, that was a 9-month ago goal, but it's still within this energy of the Cancer storyline. Now, it could be something to do with expanding your family, because we do have Jupiter still in Cancer. Something to do with expanding your home. Something to do with expanding your need for emotional security, learning lessons, going back over the past. All of those come up because even though Jupiter's wide as far as its influence, the fact that it's still in the sign of Cancer, it is having an influence on this full moon. And of course, Jupiter helps us grow and expand. Again, this is why I think this has a lot of influence with babies. So I'm guessing maybe we'll see the birth rate pick up here in 2026 because of Jupiter's influence here and because of the moon being full at the beginning of the year. To me, that says pregnancies will be on the rise in 2026. Hopefully that means we feel better about having children in 2026 as well. And so that's the main storyline. It's Venus, it is the sun, and it is Mars combining their energy together and shining it on the moon and helping us see what it is that we really need, what we really truly want to have the emotional security, to have the family structure that will make us feel whole and safe and secure. Now, the nodes, as I mentioned, still have an influence, even though they're here at 10 degrees, still very close, of course, to the sun, to Mars, to Venus, and of course to the moon, and of course the south node. So there's this opportunity that has been calling your attention. It could literally feel like a calling, like you may suddenly be moving, or you may suddenly decide you want to be a mom. That whatever has been going on this whole week has been setting you up for concluding this goal or concluding this chapter as far as the moon in the sign of Cancer goes for you. And as I mentioned, I'll break this video out because they're getting very long when I cover all of the details by sign within the same week's video. So because this is later in the week, I will post a second video and break this out by sign for everybody and what you will be working on as far as closure and conclusions go. And if you know your chart and you know where you have 13 degrees in the sign of Cancer, well, you already know this could be a big important event if this happens to coincide with personal planets. So for me, I'm expecting something big because of the fact that my Jupiter is conjunct my sun in the sign of Cancer in this same territory in my 11th house of friends and networking groups and fairy godparents. So bring me the money. Or it could make a great new friend and mentor. Something exciting like that could be available to me in the year ahead. All kinds of possibilities. So where will this be for you? If you're Cancer, of course, it's going to be in your first house. So you Cancers know that this is a big, important time for setting goals for 2026, this 1 year of new beginnings, while you're also going to have that square from Saturn and Neptune in February. This year is not going to be about doing just the same things. It is about making significant changes. And of course, when the cardinal signs like Cancer and Capricorn are being activated, even though this is a full moon for conclusions and endings, whatever you end, it's bringing something big into your life so you can trust the process, and whatever's being pulled away from you, it's opening a huge, like double doors of opportunity going forward. So that's pretty exciting energy. And again, because the nodes are involved, it's fate. So trust the process, trust where you're being guided and led, and go with an open heart. All right. That's the big energies from this, I think, pretty rewarding full moon in the sign of Cancer. Hopefully it's very emotionally rewarding. Let us move on as we finish out the week. We, of course, are just going to still see that moon in its home sign in Cancer. So this still feels like a pretty emotional day. And as it finishes its time here on Sunday, it's speaking in harmony with Uranus and speaking in harmony with Saturn, with Neptune. So this is pretty dreamy, emotionally happy, like This is you understanding what your dreams are about. And, financially, you may have some kind of an unexpected windfall that's going to help you put your dream into reality. And that's going to affect people who have planets, again, around that 26 to 29 degree of these water signs. And of course, Uranus is still stirring things up here, retrograde and in the sign of Taurus. But this is helpful. These are helpful shake-ups. These are surprises in, finances. But again, support you. So, like I said, some money, maybe some kind of unexpected inheritance from an aunt you didn't even know you had, that allows you to buy a bigger home by the water. Safely by the water. Nothing that can be flooded. All right, so that is a nice way to wrap up the week. And we're going to continue on with this concentrated energy with Venus, with the Sun, with Mars, all here in Capricorn, and about to really make a big splash as we head into next week. And so next week, as I mentioned, we're going to see on Tuesday in particular, these three come together. So this is a very powerful moment that could have something to do with the financial markets. It could have something to do with the government. And at the time, we've got that moon in Leo squaring with Uranus. So there could be some surprising shocks and changes in roles, in government positions, where I keep saying, I really do think, right or wrong, that there will be a change of regime in Venezuela, and it is the woman who will step up and step into power. So it's very interesting what's going on in the world, and it's not up to me what the outcome is, but always choose the light, choose to see the light and the possibilities. So that is what we are seeing as we head into Tuesday, is a big amount of energy that, again, could kind of shock and surprise us, because these over the next few weeks, and I would recommend going out and reading my January horoscope if you haven't already. The link to that's down here as well too. These are each going to have the face off here with Jupiter, still retrograde in the sign of Cancer. And so there's something important that we need to learn, something we need to remember about the past, why we first started doing something in the first place. And if we've gotten distracted by money and power, we're going to be called out. If instead we're using our money and power for good, then Jupiter's going to help you succeed. So January is very intriguing, interesting, as always, energy-wise. But watch over these first few weeks, the momentum and what's happening, what's shaping up, especially as we start to see Neptune finish its time for our lifetimes forever in the sign of Neptune, in the sign of Pisces, I should say, and then head into Aries. Entrepreneurs in 2026 really have to pay attention, and we're going to see a lot more of them as a result of Saturn and Neptune in Aries next year. Especially, I think, spiritual workers, creative artists, musicians, writers, all kinds of things. Anyway, I could talk forever, but I know you'd like to get to your New Year celebrations. So come back with me. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe, and then go out to my website, maraleeburnett.com. Make sure you become a member there. I don't spam you. I like having my business very small and manageable. And so I just create free content for you out there. You've got a new moon and full moon article, which are out there already for January. They've got the 2026 article. And of course, I've got special pricing. Hopefully you took advantage of maybe one of my gift certificates or gift cards for a Christmas gift. Happy to work with anybody in your life that you think could use an advantage by knowing what's coming in 2026. So I look forward to talking to you all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and come back in a few days and watch for the breakdown by sign for this powerful faded full moon in the sign of Cancer. All right, guys, take care and Happy New Year.